Hey guys, Mr. V over here doing a book review today for The Last Train to Memphis, The Rise of Elvis Presley by Peter Guralnick. Now, this is part one in a two-part series about Elvis Presley. This is the rise of Elvis Presley, and the book ends right as he gets drafted in 1958. Now, everyone has basically heard of Elvis, whether it be a song or people even just recognize who Elvis is, the person. They just recognize Elvis because he is a legend. He's just internationally known even now. He just, somehow people know of Elvis. And I knew of Elvis. I knew a few of his songs. I didn't know much about him. I just knew more of his songs. I knew a few of his TV appearances before. But I wanted to learn more about him. And that's why I read this book. I decided to read the book, and I'm glad that I read the book because it was a lot of fun because I learned a lot about him. Now, if you are considering this book, though, make sure that you want to learn about Elvis because this is just part one. I'm going to be reading part two coming up, but the two books together as the audio version, I think is 52 hours. This one I think was about 22 hours, but combined is 52 hours total. So it goes in great detail about him, and that's why you want to make sure you want to learn about Elvis. Because he basically just starts with his childhood, starts from the beginning, and you see the tough upbringing Elvis had, how he was poor, he was moving all the time, how he was actually very shy. Which is interesting knowing how Elvis becomes, but he was a very shy kid, and you get to see that. But you also not only see Elvis, you see the life of an up-and-coming singer, how hard it is to get discovered, to have someone believe in you, and shows the difficulties that Elvis faced, because it was not easy, as he had to keep stopping by the studios and always asking the studio if they needed a singer, always trying to get that studio to have him play a song of his, do something, and he had to somewhat be annoying to the studio. And that's the way it is for a lot of up-and-coming singers and stars and how difficult it is. But even after you get a local hit, and you're just known in your town, and you just do minor touring around there, or how you play at a concert, but there's a lot of people playing at one show, and you're just one of them. You're not a headliner yet. And how he shows that after those type of concerts, Elvis would have to stay after to sell his records, and you're just playing so many small shows, hoping that someone discovers you. You just basically, again, see not only Elvis's life, but really the life of an up-and-coming singer. And at that point, you have to wonder to yourself when you are becoming a minor hit, do you quit working and focus on music? Do you take that risk? And how do you make yourself different than the other singers? How do you become successful? So you see all that in the book, and it is very interesting. The author does a great job of just showing that. And it's just very interesting if you want to see not only Elvis, but the life of just an up-and-coming singer and how difficult it is. But what's also interesting about Elvis, and the book shows, is how the 1950s was different than today. That getting discovered countrywide was definitely harder. Today, there's the internet, so it is easier to get discovered countrywide. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. It's not easy to get discovered, but it was, I'd say, easier than Elvis's day, because back then, there wasn't even many TV appearances. There was just mainly radio. And how do you get discovered across the whole country and get people to know who you are? Because he shows the life that Elvis was living when it was a minor hit, how he was well known in some areas, but he was not known across the country. That'd be, yeah, he'd known in this area, but he wasn't known down here. He'd be known in this area, but not over here. And it just shows what Elvis was like and how devoted he was and how the managers were fighting over minor contracts, but he was still not that big a success yet. So there weren't that many managers fighting over him. And it was he was almost there. So the author really does a great job of documenting his life, and you get to see what it's like for Elvis. But you also see what it's like after he becomes successful, after he becomes very successful. I always wondered when reading the book, I was wondering how he was going to treat his initial band. I'm not going to say how he does because I always Elvis becomes humongous. So I was curious how he's going to treat his initial band. Was he going to keep his initial band, or was he going to get a new band after he becomes huge? Because I always read of different stars that after they become big, they leave their previous band. Or some stars will not leave the previous band, even if the band isn't as good, or what happens to them. So it's interesting knowing Elvis becomes huge, just to see the way the author talks about it and just seeing it. And you just see how crazy life becomes after you become successful. how then, there becomes so much tutoring. There's touring, sorry, so much touring. There's so much studio recording. You get more contracts. There's very little sleep. There's just more pressure. There's more fame, which means more money, which is great. But then there'll be more pressure, and then that leads to more criticism because not everybody liked Elvis back in those days. Elvis seems pretty mild of today. Back in the 50s, he was considered very radical. Not only his songs, but his dance moves. The people were just blaming him for infecting their youth, and they just did not like Elvis. There was protests against Elvis. Some people just hated Elvis, and there was people that loved just to hate Elvis. So you get to see that and just see what it's like, how he responded to that harsh criticism and all that, and just the life of a famous person. The author just shows it perfectly. And I don't remember the exact quote, but at one point Elvis talks to a friend of his. That friend was hoping he could become famous, and Elvis is like, "Why? You can't even go out. You can't even leave your house. You can't even go get a burger." And I forget the exact quote, but Elvis says something like that to a friend, and it is true. Elvis couldn't leave his home. He was too famous. At one point, he left his home to go get some kind of food, and then his car got ruined because the fans just got too crazy. But if you think of it today, there's many famous people. If you saw at the store today, people would go crazy asking for autographs, doing all these pictures, everything. It was the same back then too. So that's why Elvis, while it was great being famous, he still was like, yeah, but all of a sudden you're just stuck at home, and it's just a very different lifestyle. So you get to see that, and the author just shows it perfectly. Now there were a few criticisms I have of the book. One of the things was I wish he had added more photos. There's one photo at the beginning of every chapter. I don't remember how many chapters are in here, but there's only one photo at the beginning of every chapter. And Elvis is famous enough that he could have included more photos. You don't need to go crazy and put millions of photos or hundreds of photos there, but you could have included more because there are millions of photos of Elvis online. So I was I think he could have included more in the book. And another thing was there are a lot of names because there was a lot of people in Elvis's life. Sometimes there was people who would be a semi-friend. Sometimes there was old friends. There was sometimes a record producer, manager's friends. There was a friend of a friend, and there was just so many people around Elvis. And the author talks about all those people, but it is sometimes hard to remember who was who. And it's just there were so many people in his life, so that made it a little tough at times to remember. Okay, wait, who is this person? Wait, how are they related to Elvis? Because it would come back 2 chapters later, and so that could be a little difficult at times. Lastly, I would say it was super detailed at times. Sometimes the author was even going into a day by day. So that can be a little detailed at times. I'm just the average fan. I just know some of his songs, but it's not bad for the average fan, but you just want to prepare yourself to know that it will go in great detail at times. It gives an overview, but there are some chapters that are super detailed. So just be prepared. I would say one great reference is YouTube. It was a very helpful reference because sometimes the author would describe some kind of TV performance that he did, and then I could just upload it on YouTube and just be oh, and watch the actual performance and then read about it as well. I think that helped a lot. So I would definitely, if you want to read the book, I would use YouTube because you can not only upload some of his songs, but you can also see what are some of the video performances they're talking about. So I'd say that helped a lot. But overall, I enjoyed the book, and I'd recommend it for people that want to learn about Elvis and just see what the life of an up-and-coming star is, but also someone as famous as Elvis who became one of the legends of our time and became just one of the biggest stars of all time. And I was going to say, I really enjoyed the book. If you guys have any comments or questions, please post it in the comment section below because I always love hearing your opinions. If you guys enjoyed the book review today, hit the subscribe button. I always upload multiple different book reviews, and I'm going to be uploading part 2 in the next few weeks. But thank you for watching my book review today. This is Mr. V. Go enjoy reading.